alaikum everyone, and welcome to The Good Tree, the place inspired by the verse in the Quran of a good word that is like a good tree. His roots are firm and branches reach great heights. You are joined by your hosts, myself, Fizza and Noor.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. This series is all about how we can perfect our morals in all of our relationships. In today's episode, we will be discussing our relationship with technology, in particular when it comes to raising children in the modern world.
We are delighted to be joined today with Sheikh Salim Yusufali. Sheikh is born and bred in the States. After completing his bachelor's and master's in computer science from Stanford University, he worked in Silicon Valley as a software engineer. In 2004, he decided to quit his job and move to Qom to study at the Islamic seminaries and completed his master's at Al-Mustafa University in 2014. He is currently the Dean of Mission at R.I.S.E Academy and the Assistant Resident Scholar of SABA Centre in San Jose, California. He is currently pursuing a doctorate degree in educational leadership from Western University. Sheikh Salim, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to The Good Tree.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for making time for us. Today's discussion is on an area that doesn't really get much coverage within our centres, but it's probably the one area that is increasingly relevant to all of us, especially within the current climate. We know technology has many advantages, such as allowing us to be more informed on what's going on around the world, allowing us to keep in touch with family across the globe, as well as making education a lot more accessible, etc. However, this series is discussing our morals and ethics, which many will assume only relates to our real physical world, but technology is now a significant part of our real physical world. This relationship with technology is starting from childhood. So we wanted to begin today's discussion by asking, what is our responsibility towards raising our children in today's digital world?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So our responsibility as caregivers, as parents, as those who are helping with the tarbiyah and the upbringing of others remains overall the same. I mean, the human being is the same, the goal is the same, which is to become an abd of Allah, a servant of Allah, to attain perfection by taking the path of servitude to Allah. Those goals are the same, but now as people who are involved with education and upbringing of the next generation, we have to be aware of the challenges that they're facing and of the opportunities that are presented to them when it comes to technology. If we take the analogy of a gardener, let's say there's a new type of weed that's growing in the garden, so then the gardener will have to be aware of, how are they going to deal with this? Maybe they need a different sort of strategy. In the same way, let's say that there's a new type of fertilizer that's available, then they have to know how to acquire that. So technology provides both, again, an opportunity and a challenge.
Ahsant, Sheikh. I think that's a really good analogy you just gave there. So one of the challenges that I would say appears to be coming about due to social media is this concept of haya, modesty. So I think we know what the traditional haya and modesty should be in the real world, but when it comes to the online world, what is haya and how should we be applying it? And what are the challenges there? For example, we've got these Snapchat filters that accentuate your features in a way that may not be conducive to hijab wearing girls. You may find boys who work out in the gym, they want to show off their bodies. There are even things like TikTok videos, which are done, they're supposed to be done in a very light-hearted manner, entertaining way, but it will feature things like a girl who is wearing the hijab, but dancing in a not very modest way. So can you explain to us what haya should be when it comes to online platforms?
When it comes to technology, I think that we need to understand what it is and what it's not. Like social media and screens, they are very materialistic entities. It's all about shape and form and colors and photos, and it's things which are tangible, which are which are very much like, take on certain dimensions. And when these things are moving around the screen and talking and all these things for the purpose of entertainment, it is something which is very like dunyawi, it's very worldly. The idea of like using screen entertainment media and then, let's say, using it for higher ideals and higher values, it's very difficult. It's not something which naturally comes along with it. Everything has its own natural tendency. That's what I'm trying to say. So usually when I talk about technology, I say that, like, let's say that, I give an example. Let's say that you have a bowl of soup. Now, when you have a spoon, right, that's what's going to help you drink that, drink the bowl of soup. But let's say you have a saw. Well, the saw is not, it's just not meant for the purpose of, like, going with the bowl of soup. So when we look at social media, when we look at screens, we have to ask ourselves that, what could it be used for? Okay, there's a lot of things it could be used for, but what is it typically used for? What is it geared towards? And social media and entertainment media from screens is geared towards, like, a very much like pulling people to, like, the dunya, the lowest kind of stage of existence. And so that's why we see that naturally when it comes to screens and photos and all that, usually, like, a lot of the layers of decency get peeled off, and people go back to kind of like their raw animal selves. People who they might do things that they would never do in person, but somehow it's because of this medium, it's like sort of filtering out all those, like, other things which bring about that decency and that presential awareness of God, and it just becomes like, okay, me in my animal form. And so it's not surprising to see these things happen when it's a very visual oriented media, that people kind of devolve and they go back into those type of things, like, showing off or like presenting themselves and their bodies, and kind of like accentuating things about them, making themselves appear that they aren't, and really like deriving pleasure in other people admiring their body and their face and their looks and their clothes and the food that they make and these type of things, rather than looking at the higher ideals of what a human being is all about. So that's just a long-winded, but just sort of a look at kind of the media itself. I don't know if you had more follow-ups on that, but I think I've talked a lot as an answer to this particular question.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a very good description of the difference between the online world and the world we live in real life. So I wanted to ask, related to that, is that, are they two separate worlds? That, because some people will assume that you behave differently online to how you behave in real life. So if I met a certain person, for example, someone from the opposite gender, in real life, I would observe certain, maybe the way I act, the way I dress. But online, people may drop their guard sometimes. So is it enough for me to say then that how you behave online should be how you behave in real life with someone? Or is there a difference?
If there's a difference, it would be kind of the other direction, where when I'm online, I have to take even more precaution. Why is it? For some different reasons. Like, for example, when I'm online, usually people are online and they tend to be alone during that time. So, or they think that they're alone. And it's easy for them to lose sight of the fact that, well, at least they're in the presence of Allah. But usually it's just them and their device, right? Even if there are other people around. So, one of the times of when shaitan comes and tempts us, is when we're in a khalwa, and when we're alone, or relatively we're alone. And so, people when they're staring at their device, they have to be aware of this. The shaitan, is obviously there. The other thing is that, like I mentioned before, this medium, it breaks down the boundaries, and so we have to take extra precaution not to, like, let the medium take us with it. Like, we have to be in control, not that we let it take control of us. So maybe, for example, let's say it's very easy to, like, send a emoticon to, like, let's say the opposite gender, like you're saying, right? That would really, like, break the boundary, the barriers, and really, like, sort of make things very casual between us. Well, I don't have to, just because it's available doesn't mean I have to actually I have to use it. I can still, like, hold myself to a higher standard because I'm taking extra precaution. But to answer your question, from a fiqhi perspective, I mean, the rules are they transfer over to the virtual world as well. So when it comes to rules of hijab, when it comes to rules of interaction, when it comes to rules of, like, looking and being seen, when it comes to rules of whom you can converse with in private, they all apply even online. And so that's why the Maraja will say, for example, it's not okay for two members of the opposite gender to be socially chatting on, online when they're not mahram to each other. Now, of course, there are times when people are chatting for the purposes of, like, let's say they're planning something or organizing, or there's some discussion going on. Then that's a different set of circumstances and rulings. But when it comes to just pure social chatting, like friendly, like banter, I'd say that no, because in the fatwa we actually have istifta'at which indicate that they say that will definitely lead to, like, haram taking place. So out of precaution, it's not allowed.
Thank you so much for that. So I think maybe as adults, we can work on becoming more self-aware in that respect and managing the way we interact with people online. But how do we navigate our children through this? I mean, some children are getting devices and access to online accounts at a very early age.
I would advise parents to be very educated in this regard. And the thing that can motivate them is the need that they have to guide their children and to protect them. There are so many things that children can get into these days that will be damaging for them, like, forever. And I can tell you stories from parents who have contacted me. They're like, oh my God, my child, did this thing, and it's like horrific thing. And they're like 7 years old, and why? Because, the parent had given them an iPad, and it was like a half an hour a day where they weren't watching over their child, and things happen, like really terrible things. There's another case of like children, they were at their grandparents' home and the grandparents didn't know, and then they started accessing things which are very inappropriate, and they were just like children, like that, maybe 5, 6 years old. So parents need to be very educated. They can't be in the dark or let their children educate them. Sometimes parents are very, very sort of, should we say, naive. Like, they think that, oh, they're monitoring their child's Instagram account. Well, okay, fine, but what if the child has another Instagram account, which that's where they do their real chatting with, and that's happened. I've seen that, and it's not abnormal. Oh, my child is playing, this video game. It's for kids, like Roblox. Okay, well, let's see that video game. Do you know that it's mostly dominated by child predators? And police have issued report after report warning parents, don't let your children play this game, and so many other things like that. So parents need to be, number one is education. Number two is taking charge of their children's upbringing. Like, it's not okay to let the society or the current trends be the ones who do the tarbiyah and upbringing of our children. We have to do it. We have a responsibility in this regard. And that means that we take a certain approach, and we firmly say that this is what we're allowing and this is what we're not allowing, and this is what we're about. If we choose to give our child a device, and the whole discussion there about at what age and to what extent and how, everything like that, it should be on our terms and not on their terms. And it shouldn't just be like this. It's not a right that the child has. Like, they have a right to drink water, they have a right to breathe. They don't have a right to just use a device however they want to. But I'd be happy to go into any one of these points in more detail if you'd like. But I think just as a summary answer, that's what I have to say.
I mean, I'm definitely interested to hear more about this because I'm a mother and I worry about this all the time. And I can tell you that I haven't really heard of any, let's say, course or lecture that would educate me in this regard. Like, how can I find out more to protect my child?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are courses that, and there is material available for parents to get educated. I have found that there are many parents, even non-Muslims, those who care. They have some great videos, YouTube channels where they talk about these things. There are some authors as well who speak about these different matters, and sometimes they have profound things to say. Leonard Sachs is one of them who I tend to follow. He's a Jewish doctor. But a lot of what he says, I think that every Muslim parent will be like, yeah, this totally resonates with me. And he talks about, these concepts about that, what are you guys doing as parents? You're destroying your children by giving them just unmonitored, free open access, and you don't have any control over it. So that's, like the other thing is like, working with other parents, like at the end of the day, our children, get a cue as to what they should do and what not they shouldn't do. It's not just from us, it's also from their peer groups. So making sure that we've found, as parents, like those parents that we agree with, and we have the same parent or similar parenting strategy, and then we have our children be friends with their children, so that if we are going to take let's say a more narrower approach in terms of like how we're going to allow access, then it's not just that our children are alone in this regard.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm definitely going to look him up. And I absolutely agree. Finding parents who, let's say, their values are in line with your values in bringing up children is extremely important. I mean, we can have good relationships with everyone, but at the end of the day, we're all here to become better and grow. And when it comes to the upbringing of our children, it's what we should be investing most our effort into, because at the end of the day, they will be our sadaqah jariyah, and Allah will question us on the effort that we put into bringing them up, right?
Yes, I mean, of course, we have a primary responsibility for ourselves. And in some way, you could say that when we work on ourselves and try to like be nurtured by Allah Ta'ala and the prophets and the imams and the Quran and the great ulama, I mean, that's part of helping our children. So we can't just be like, okay, I have to, help my children. We have to be looking at ourselves. So for example, let's say that I, as a parent, I'm addicted to like, Instagram and TikTok or whatever, all this stuff, and then I expect my child to not be following my path, then I'm dreaming. So, I have to not just talk the talk, I have to walk the walk.
Well, that's a very important point you raised there. I've heard children tell their parents, why are you always on your phone? And I think that happens to a lot of people. So we really do need to model how we expect our children to behave. So related to this, I want to ask, I mean, schools in the UK, approximately for the last 8 years, have been warning their students about their digital footprint and this whole idea of online stranger danger. But what we find is that although children might become responsible, and we're talking about school-age children, and they might take the responsibility to keep their accounts private and, try and keep safe online, we find that a lot of parents are very open about what they post in terms of posting pictures or information about their own kids. I mean, even posting pictures of their children with their school uniform. I've heard that, don't post a picture of your child with their school uniform on, because then someone can track them down to the school that they go to, for example. Or as soon as a baby is born, they create an email address for them. I mean, I'm sure there are positives to these things, but I'm just wondering what the dangers are and, what are the potential problems that parents are creating for their children when they're, creating Instagram accounts on their behalf, or Facebook accounts, or posting pictures online on a regular basis?
Well, I think one aspect of this is like to go back to the question of like, why is it that I have this urge to have my child's photos and their accomplishments be recognized by others? There's one time where, let's say, my child does something and my mother, like the grandmother, right, she would really appreciate knowing that, and she feels like thankful to God because, let's say, her grandchild is doing something. That's great. I share that with her. But there's another time where like I'm doing it and I have to question my ikhlas. Like, is it the case that, God forbid, that I'm looking to like kind of be raised in people's eyes because my child is accomplishing these things, and I'm in a way, it's almost like a type of showing off or something like that. I'm not saying that we don't just because somebody does that, we don't want to accuse them of that. We have to look at ourselves and our own intention. So sometimes, just because everyone else is doing something doesn't mean that we have to do it as well. Like, yeah, it might feel nice to have like 200 likes, whatever, or whatever it is on the social media platform you're using for my baby's photo, but what does it really mean? I mean, at the end of the day, what are they even measuring goodness off of? Is it just like the outer, we have in hadith, like, where sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it says that Allah doesn't look at your ila suwarikum, like in terms of your outer form, or like, let's say the wealth that you have or the clothes you have, but like yanzuru ila qulubikum, He looks at your hearts. That's what matters, right? So that if we want to make sure that for ourselves we're not being tricked by some of these things, and also that we're promoting the right message for our children, that okay, all these things in terms of your accomplishments, okay, great, but really I'm going to be what my source of pride is when you become an abd of Allah. And that's not something that you're going to be plastering all over social media, because it's something between them and God. But their akhlaq and like these things where you can't necessarily take a picture of like, that person's good akhlaq, right? That's something which is it goes beyond just pictures. So that's one thing. The other thing is on a safety level, of course. I mean, these are real issues. We shouldn't think that it's going to happen to every other one's children, but not happen to my child. No, all of our children are at risk. And if it is something where we're doing it and it has a significant risk, then it's not even halal to do it. Now, where do we draw the line? Where does it become paranoia versus like reality? That's something that I would defer to the experts. But definitely, this is a serious issue. I can't emphasize it enough. This issue of like sick people, twisted sort of minds, like, like basically like being hungry for children, and they will go to, like terrible extents to be able to accomplish like, their goals. And so that it matters, like when it comes to like what we do in person, who we entrust our children with, like we shouldn't be letting them out of our sight unless we're like 110% sure about who's taking care of them, or 150% sure. And then we should regularly be monitoring that. And online, there's no difference online. Like what, I always tell parents that the same way that you wouldn't invite a whole horde of strangers into your living room to play with your child when you're not there or you're not aware of who they are, why would you let them go and play like Fortnite or some other games with all these other children and you don't know who they are? They're conversing with them, they're learning from them. Oftentimes they'll have like separate chat rooms on different forums that are present, and they'll continue the conversation even after they play the game. So why would you let that happen to them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really terrifying. Inshallah, we can all become more aware.
Inshallah.
So moving on from the topic of privacy, when I was looking at programs or films such as Black Mirror and Searching, I don't know if you've seen Searching, but it highlighted the way the world is going at the moment. And I found particularly Searching very realistic, and I would definitely recommend it to parents to watch the film, as it shows everything from the angle of a computer screen. However, the film highlighted a very important part, that although our children or young adults have learnt that they should keep their accounts private, it is possible that we as adults or parents have no idea what they're actually getting up to, as you have already spoken about, who they chat to online, who are those people that they're talking to. So from an Islamic perspective, do you have any advice on how parents can navigate around the issue of privacy?
Yeah, I think that the parents are the ones who are providing the access to their children. They're the ones who are buying like the iPad, or they're giving them access to a laptop or whatever. So they can do so with this condition, with this understanding, that, look, I'm giving you this, but you should know that, okay, well, everything that you're doing, it's being monitored, right? And even, that you have like non-Muslim experts, they recommend even like having a contract and signing it. So it's very clear that this is something which is really important. But as part of that, the parent is letting the child know that, look, this is not something where, everything is private. No, I have these type of rights to be able to like do these things, and to be able to look at your chat history or track the websites that you go to or whatever, and let them know up front. And then there's no like Shari or like Islamically legal issues then about like, let's say, doing tajassus and like let's say intruding on the privacy of the child. Let's say that no, that wasn't done, or the child has their own whatever. It's just not that. That's not the arrangement that's there. Even then, if you look at the Marajit, what they say about this, generally speaking, they say that if there's a major concern that's there that the parent has, then yes, we don't want to intrude on privacy just like that, but this is a major concern, then it's okay for them to like, because to like go and like, let's say, check the device, whatever it is, because it's a big deal. What I would suggest, to parents is that like to, first of all, like they need to like be communicating with their children about this whole thing, and they need to be in the know themselves, and communicating, make sure that the children are in the know. They need to have alternatives, then where children know that it's not just the funnest thing out there isn't hanging out on social media and waiting for somebody to ping you. Like there's a lot of stuff out there which gives you a lot more life and a lot more energy, and it's a lot more natural, and it gives life to your soul. And but parents need to facilitate that for the children, and they need to create those opportunities. Also, it's very good for it's very good for the parents to let the children know that that okay, we're gonna be allowing this, but now not these type of things. And even though we trust you, we don't trust the system out there. Like we don't trust the people who could be trying to like trick you, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. It's not so they don't feel that like they're being singled out, or that no, it's just like, look, it's a dangerous thing out there, and that's why we're going to be checking up with you once in a while. We want to know who you're chatting with and all that, and we want you to explain so we can help you make those decisions. And of course, there will come a time where the child is old enough, and then the parents will have to then back off, and when the child at that point, if they are going to make mistakes, they're going to have to deal with the consequences. But the hope is that by that time, the parents have established that type of trust and loving relationship with their children, so that they know that they can come to them, they can share with them the challenges that they're facing. It's very important that the parents then become like a resource for the child, as opposed to the ones who are kind of just always like supervising them.
Ahsan, Sheikh. I think this is giving me a lot to think about, and I like what you said about if it poses a great danger or threat to our child's upbringing, then it's important for us to know what they're doing. I have a friend who always says, she's like, when I've given a child of mine a device, I tell them, this isn't yours, this is mine, and you're borrowing it.
Yeah.
So she's like, from the beginning, I established that it's not under your ownership, it's mine, and you're borrowing it, and whenever I need to check it, I will.
And that's exactly right. I mean, there's no need in many cases for children to have their own devices. Once you make it their own, then they will say, well, I can take it wherever I want, I can use it however I want, I can take it in my bedroom. And that's, it could be the introduction of a lot of problems. But no, the family has some shared devices. There's rules about how they're used, where they're used, when they're used. And then, I mean, so this is where the whole peer group thing comes in, that maybe they won't be as the coolest person in school because they don't walk around with their own iPhone, whatever, whatever the latest model is. But that's okay. That's okay. It's fine.
Actually, can I just point out something you just said? You said they won't be the coolest person in school. I think this is something that worries parents, especially parents who've got low self-esteem or don't have many friends or didn't have friends growing up. They worry about this a lot, and they're really keen for their child to have a lot of friends or be popular in school. And so sometimes they may indeed feel pressured to give in and give them that device, so that they're not, how do we balance this so that our child isn't the odd one out, but at the same time, what's wrong with being the odd one out if you're confident enough to say, I don't want to do this? If we were all sheep, then we wouldn't I've heard this before, that if we bring up our children to just copy everyone, then how can we expect them to stand up, for example, for Imam Hussein? Those people who stood up for Imam Hussein were people who were able to stand out away from the rest of the people, stand out against the crowd and say, hey, I believe this is the right way. So how do we balance that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that you nailed it on the head, where you said it goes back to identity. We're not here to be like to be the crowd pleasers, to be the most popular people who are acknowledged by media and by the system as being the most popular. Because if that were the case, then we'd have to give up our identity and our values. We're mu'mineen, we're believers, and we're in societies where most of the values, like many of them, run contrary to what we stand for. So does that mean that we need to be outcast? Does that mean that we need to, like, we don't have any place? No, but it does mean that many of the things that we stand for will be contrary to the dominant, system. And so the way that they will judge us and our children is, in many cases, it won't be like very favorable. So I think that so first of all, like when the option for like Islamic schooling or homeschooling or other forms of like schooling, did they come into the picture? That's a whole separate discussion. And I know that in the UK, there's not as much opportunity as there is, let's say, where I'm at. But that's something to really consider, that like, if I have that opportunity and it's a real Islamic school and it's like a healthy, positive, holistic environment, then why would if I have the opportunity, why wouldn't I send my children to that environment? That's one point. But let's say just the other thing is just setting the expectations correctly for our children, and as parents as well too, that what is success? Success is not measured by everyone like saying and clapping their hands. We have in hadith that a mu'min has something so precious that if the entire world were to come and say, for example, let's say they have like a pearl in their hands, the entire world were to come and say that no, all you have is like a stone that's not doesn't have any value, they would still be happy because they know what they have is valuable. So that's where Imam Hussein alayhi salam, those examples really can be useful.
Thank you so much.
Sheikh, now just sort of moving on from the schools thing that you were saying, there's a lot of secular schools that have adopted or will be adopting bring your own device, which is something that perhaps some of our madrasas are now implementing over here. Do you have any thoughts on use of tablets in madrasas? Do you think that it's a good, useful learning tool?
I mean, we live in strange times where I don't know exactly what the latest is there in the UK, but here in America, many of the schools are opening now in September with not able to like have classes live, or even if they have live classes, there's some segment of the class which is not able to, for whatever reasons, they're not able to participate. So that it's kind of like a hybrid model. And so here's where technology comes in, and it's very useful. It provides opportunities that we didn't have before. But what do we use it for? And why are we using it? This is where we have to really ask these questions. Like, if you look at even some of the top schools in the world, like that embrace the Waldorf educational approach, they actually shun technology. And you have the tech moguls, you have like the founders of the big tech companies, the ones that make these devices, they send their kids to these schools. So what have they understood that many of us are not aware of? Like, technology is not a solution, it's a tool, and it has to be used in the right way, and it can't be a substitute for those things which, like, just because you have technology doesn't mean that now you get rid of the teacher. Like even when it comes to these remote learning and hybrid models, the teacher still has paramount importance. So in these Sunday schools and all, I would say that, like, well, what is this really like going to help you for? Is it just that are you planning on now like sort of just making it so the teacher doesn't have to do as much work, and they don't have to, like, let's say, really learn the material well and really be able to talk about it well? Then I would say invest your time and your efforts in training teachers, and giving them the tools so that they will be able to teach a very, very like compelling, interesting class. If kids are getting bored and we're like, well, let's bring in the iPads and now they'll start coming to our Sunday schools or Saturday schools, then our problem isn't the lack of technology. It's in that we're not doing the right thing in terms of setting up our schools, and we don't have the right teachers. And maybe we're not even doing it at the right time, and we're not respecting the fact that the kids are tired at that time and they don't want to come. We need to identify the problem correctly and then give the proper solution for it, not a band-aid solution, which later on it's going to cause problems for us. Generally speaking, my own experience, what I've found is that Islam is appealing to the fitra of a child. It's interesting. They love it, but it has to be taught in the right way. And if we do it the right way, then the children will be like thirsty for it, and they'll want to come back more and more. They want the stories. They want to hear about the prophets. They love the Quran. They love Allah. They love Tawheed. These type of things. And it doesn't require the use of an iPad to deliver that message.
Thank you so much, Sheikh.
Quite some time ago, when I was growing up, we had what was known as a Watershed Moment. Traditionally, that was after 9 p.m. Programs that were on TV would contain foul language, violence, sex. That was the main thing. So parents knew that their kids would go to sleep. And if they wanted to watch something, it's with their guidance. Physically going to newsagents, adult content magazines used to be on the top shelves. So it was away from plain view. And I don't really recall too many of the weird and wonderful billboard adverts that we see now. There were some, but I wouldn't say that there are as many as we have today. But now, with our children, they're exposed to everything. These handheld devices, which was once something that was in the business world, has now become pretty much in everyone's homes. So everything is available, anything and everything. So all sorts of dating apps, gambling apps. You can watch whatever genre you want, whenever you want, more sophisticated algorithms, target adverts, which are not children friendly. There's also so much filth and violence in video games and music videos. I think we all know what's in them. So perhaps once upon a time where a young adult perhaps was deterred from going into a physical betting shop because they didn't want to be seen by others, I feel that it's now a lot more easier to fall into haram and become addicted to vices such as masturbation, pornography, exploring one's sexuality, gambling, drugs, violence, addiction to playing games, etc. And some of these vices, I don't know if you know, but perhaps they don't become apparent until after this young adult has married. So I guess my question is, do you have any comments on any of this, or in your opinion, how do parents protect their children from falling into such behaviors?
So I have to say that, what you're saying, I completely agree with, and I would affirm that, and I would say that it's a crisis, and it's very important for parents to be aware of this. We have cases of, just in my personal experience of like counseling issues that come up, from within the community, we have cases of marriages being threatened because of these types of issues, like the for example, the husband, having an addiction to, some of these vices, and then that creating like a type of situation where, nothing will be satisfying, or we have a case of like, let's say that because of exposure through media and through friends, whatever, you have males who, let's say, they're attracted to other males, and then the marriage is now going to be threatened because of that. So these are serious issues. And what I mentioned here is just maybe, unfortunately, it's just actually mild, cases, even though they're significant compared to some of the other things that maybe can't mention just in the open in this type of format. So I would say this is like a big issue. And the reality is that like there's a whole world of sin out there, and it's been taken to like unimaginable like levels of sin, like, and it continues to do so, and it's right at the fingertips of our children, and there's very little barrier for them to be able to access that. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to take a multi-pronged strategy. One of them is one of restricting and preventing access to that for the most part. Of course, like keeping them away completely and at all times, that's very difficult, and in some cases it can even backfire. And so there has to be like, a type of, understanding. Okay, well, they're going to have to access some of it, because of, let's say, even schoolwork or whatever, but done in a way where it's monitored. It's not up in the rooms, and some of the things that we've already talked about in this podcast. Like for us, like, we've arranged our home in a way where we know what's going on on the screens. The other thing is building up the immunity and making sure that our children realize like what's going on, and they understand the harms of these things. When I get a chance to speak in the Islamic schools with middle school students, high school students, even elementary, I do bring up these issues. I say, well, do you know kind of like what they're trying to do to you? Do you know what the video games, what kind of things they promote? Are you aware of this? Do you know what are the dangers of like accessing these pornographic sites, and what even the non-Muslims have said about like how that alters your tastes and your perceptions? So discussing these things, even things like Japanese anime and some of the art forms that are related to that, and how they can be used to express certain things. These are things that our children need to be exposed to. We need to teach them about these things. So that's part of the giving them that type of like immunity, is like educating them and then giving them the spiritual food so that they will be strong enough to face these things. That's why the challenge of a parent is very, very great, like when they're raising their children in this environment. So they need to be with others who are working with them. They need to be working with ulama closely. They need to have like, good programming for themselves as a family, as a community, or a community within a community, so that they create this type of immunity, this sort of like bubble, or this, and I don't mean in the bad sense bubble, I mean this sort of like a protected type of, not that they're isolated and they're staying away, but they have a separate, distinct identity that they're proud of, and they can look at others and they can say, well, I understand that these people are doing these other things, and I understand that these things I could access, but my identity and what I belong to, what I stand for, doesn't allow me to like go and access them.
I think we need a handbook. Maybe, Sheikh, you can think of writing a handbook for parents out there, because I mean, I know you're just touching on these topics. I bet you there's so much more you can say about each one of these. But there's something you mentioned that I've always wondered about, is I think some parents worry that if they open up some subjects with their children, they're exposing their child to that subject, and their child was previously completely unaware. So it's this fear of introducing them to something bad, and you don't want them to know about it, but at the same time, you want to prevent them from learning about it from the wrong person. So what would you advise parents in that regard?
Well, I would say that a lot of times parents' measure of when, the child is going to hear about this, or when they should hear about it, it's oftentimes their gauge is not like correct. Children tend to be aware of things a lot earlier than what parents think. So that's one thing. The second thing is that, yes, ideally, a lot of times these topics, it would be better to delay talking about them in order to not kind of, let's say, invoke that curiosity and keep their innocence and these type of things. But you have to look at it and say, well, I'd rather be the first person to tell my child than let's say they heard from their friends, so that they're like, oh yeah, I know about this, and I know that it's not something that we're supposed to talk about, right? And whatever, so they need to have that type of thing. We have to be aware of that reality, and so sometimes, unfortunately, we have to bring up these issues well before what we'd like to. Like the issue of like bad touch and good touch needs to be talked about from a very, very young age, in order to protect. It's a protection issue, it's a safety issue. That's something that I think in maybe the schools they talk about it as well. And some of the obviously there's some things that they talk about in the schools and the way they talk about it, which we would prefer. Definitely, we wouldn't want that. But some of the things they talk about actually makes a lot of sense because of the society that we're in. So we need to do that. The thing I would just emphasize on is the approach, right? There's one time where somebody like presents it and like they just don't do a very good job of it. They actually leave a lot of like questions in the mind of the child, and they want to go then and they're curious, so they go and ask their friends about it and whatever. There's another time where no, it's like very matter of fact, very much like this is what it is, and I know it might be awkward, but we have to talk about some of these things, and the parent doesn't spend too much time, but they do cover like the main things in a very matter of fact way. And they leave the door open, so the child knows that whenever they want, they can come back and they can discuss it again. And they have several sessions with their children talking about this, like every so often, and they bring it up. They're like, oh, we talked about this, and I just wanted to like find out how everything's going, what's up with that. And they try to create that channel, like where the children, like this is the ideal, where the child feels comfortable like bringing these things up with their parents. Now, them feeling comfortable depends on a whole bunch of other things too. Like let's say I've raised my child in a way that I criticize them too much. I'm very like picky. I'm very like I try to hammer things into them. I'm a helicopter parent. Then I'm not going to somehow just magically succeed when it comes to talking about these issues. My child's not going to want to talk about them with me. So I have to like this is something where as a parent I have to kind of think about overall what kind of relationship do I have with my child. That's something that can really help them and us when it comes to raising these issues with them. Final thing I would say is that we do have certain things that children must know in order to perform their religious obligations. And that's something which, if you think about it, already it's built into Islam that, these topics have to be addressed. So we already see this as, as being something which Islam gives us the permission to discuss them and wants us to discuss them with our children. We just need to take that a bit further and realize that there's some topics that we have to really make them, and even if they lose their innocence, I mean, it's more about losing their naivety in this case, but really giving them that type of knowledge and information, opening up that channel of communication in order to save them as they go along living in this society.
Inshallah, thank you so much for that advice. I want to move on to a different topic. So it's still related to technology, but it's actually related to the month of Muharram. So those listening will know we've recorded this in the beginning of the month of Muharram this year. And for the first time, we're having this whole COVID lockdown majalis online. So alhamdulillah, my children managed to listen to one today. They actually really enjoyed it, which I was surprised by. But what are your thoughts about the way that religious content has been delivered online during this pandemic? I mean, I was overwhelmed in the month of Ramadan with the amount of lectures that were happening online, and I can see the same thing happening now in Muharram. There are so many out there. Does it keep the essence of reviving the message of Imam Hussein alive, or do we need to kind of try to push for gatherings?
What's important is keeping the message of Imam Hussein alive for ourselves, and if we can, for others, for our families, for our communities. What's important is reminding ourselves of the tragedy, reminding ourselves of the story, crying, letting tears shed. What matters is recommitting ourselves to his path and doing his ziyarah and meaning it, and like the ziyarah being a way of like realigning ourselves, keeping that love for him and what he stood for, and then the opposite of it, which is that type of like distaste and disassociation with those who opposed him and their lifestyle. These are some of the important things that come out of our that should be coming out of our Muharram experience. Now, in terms of like how should the gatherings be done, I mean, we have to look and see what's obviously safety and health and restrictions and guidelines, government regulations. These all are important, and we want to abide by them. Where there's a way to do it, where it's perfectly legal, it's safe, whatever like that, then obviously like in person, it can be done. That's awesome. And maybe it's not the same way as it was before. Maybe it's not as frequent. Maybe it's outdoor instead of indoor with like, limited time, whatever. But still, like having that is better than not doing it at all. But definitely there will have to be some component of it which is online, which you see happening already, alhamdulillah. I would just say that like, if just as a thought, I don't know if anybody, if this will help to just put that out there, but I think that, those who are organizing the programs and everything like that, it's good for them to take into account like the medium is different. And so if my approach is, let me just do exactly the same thing I was going to do it live before, but I'm just going to put it online, then maybe won't be as successful, or maybe the result won't be as good. Whereas if you look at it and say, well, okay, people, it's different when you're behind a screen. So I'm going to, have the content be tailored appropriately. I'm going to take a different strategy. And what that is, that's a different discussion. But just kind of taking that into account, like I think maybe that would lead to better results. And the last thing I would just say, there's a lot to say because I guess, but just, because it's a topic of interest to me and relevant to kind of maybe what I do as well. What I would say is just that, like, unfortunately, like, on one hand, it's like, wow, like there's so much stuff out there, there's so much programming. And on the other hand, you also feel like that sometimes maybe the quantity isn't necessarily the best thing, because what happens now, it's like, it's about like shopping around, and it's like where can I be the most entertained by the speech, or what is it that my children find the most, like, let's say, the most like bells and whistles, and that's what I'm gonna like watch with my kids. Or sometimes, like a program that I was doing for the month of Ramadan, like the people who were watching the cooking show was like multiple times viewers as they were watching like the program that I was doing, which is fine. It's okay. But it's like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that that's interesting, you know, like what happens is that we end up sacrificing some of those very important values that we used to have. Like, for example, this idea of, you know, I'm looking for scholarship. I'm looking for the correct knowledge. I'm looking for my children to develop a relationship with let's say, a figure who's going to be like their spiritual father. That's a lot different than, let me just go and see who's going to be talking in the most, engaging manner, right? There's two different things there. And even like this thing of like, let's say that I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to, like, let's say there's somebody who really is going to address those issues which are pertinent to my local concerns because they know about them. Well, that has value in and of itself, right? And if I'm, like, to hear them, maybe it's more valuable than listen to just anyone else out there. So these are things which we need to need to think about, and see, like, well, what is the best thing for us to do? What is our responsibility, both for those who are producing the content and those who are listening to it and watching it?
Ahsan, that's very valuable advice, inshallah. We will try to be aware of, reliving not just the fact that we're going to listen to a lecture, but everything else that comes with it. I mean, when a lot of people, what they're missing out on is the sense of community when you go to a majlis, and that spiritual feeling you get while sitting there, and the commemoration happens all together. So inshallah we can all relive that in our homes, and then when possible in real life, in person.
So if you experienced in the early years working as part of the Ahlul Bayt's digital Islamic library, which later, or is it in conjunction with Al-Islam at all, and working on Shia Encyclopedia, can you tell us anything about your journey with Islam and technology from those early days?
I mean, there's a lot that I could discuss, a lot of memories from the past. I mean, I'll just maybe share a little bit, and then if you have any questions, you can ask. But what happened was that I was studying computer science, and I took a class where it gave me some tools to be able to, like, make websites. I mean, back then it was a manual process, and not too many people knew how to do it. And there was a need at that time to put some content online. And so I volunteered to do it because it was like, okay, well, I can do it. And the organization at that time, like, it had gotten a contract, or I got a quote to get it done. It was going to cost them like 2,000 British pounds or something. I was like, I'll just do it, right? And it took me, like, I don't know, some few hours or whatever, but it was done. And then it was like, at the same time, there was like a forum that had been started by one of the scholars to just connect Shia Muslims around the world. And it was called the Ahlul Bayt Discussion Group. And at that time, it was like unheard of, that you could communicate with others in different communities. And it was amazing, like, just to be able to reach out and communicate. It was like really special. And so as part of that, like, there was some articles that would be sent once in a while. And so then I used to save some of them and put them up on, like, a website, my personal website at school through university. And then this idea came up about, like, well, let's have like a digital Islamic library project. And then eventually it was like, well, why don't we and then I decided to move it from my personal site to, like, alislam.org. And then I was like, why don't we just combine alislam.org with the digital Islamic library project? And so that was kind of this journey of a team coming together. And one of my hobbies then, like, during my university experience, when I was single at that time, and I was living away from my parents, I had some spare time on my hands. And so one of my hobbies was just to, like, help out with this project. And it was really amazing because it was like different mu'mineen from around the world and working together. And fi sabilillah, inshallah, it was fi sabilillah. Because it was early on, like, there wasn't too many sites even about Islam. So we had a lot of traffic even from that time. It was one of the most popular sites about Islam. And I think it's for a long time now, it has been. But in recent years, I've been busy with other things, and there's other brothers and sisters who have taken on that role, and they're doing a great job. May Allah reward them for that. But it's been interesting, like, because now we're talking about technology and we're looking at some of the negative sides of it. But on the other hand, in my experience, of course, there's been, like, some positive aspects of it.
MashaAllah. And I don't think anyone knows how many people have benefited, but I know it's a lot, because when I was at university, that's the only website I would go to. I was always referring to it, and especially when we had to have like our discussions with brothers and sisters from the other schools of thought, or even non-Muslim brothers and sisters. There's so much information and so many books that I've read from that website, and the fact that it's there, free and available, is absolutely incredible. And I'm sure you are all getting so much thawab for bringing that project to life, mashallah.
In terms of careers, I was just wondering, is it something that you would encourage our young to go into, computer science or software engineering, anything along those lines?
I would encourage, our younger generation to go into the career of ubudiyah, of becoming a servant of Allah. And, in that journey, then inshallah, Allah will point them into the direction that He wants them to go to. He'll point out their strengths. He'll point out their weaknesses to them. He'll create opportunities for them. And when they're striving to serve Him, then they will naturally strive to make use of all the blessings that He's given them and put them into practice in the best manner. So they'll excel, and they'll be able to, inshallah, surpass others who don't have, they're not motivated by God. So for some people, for sure, computer science could be the thing that opens up for them. For others, no. But the main thing is that see what they can do to serve God. Now, for somebody, computer science might be just a way for them to make a salary, and then they use their spare time or in order to, let's say, help the Islamic cause, or they actually get a job where they're able to apply their skills, in the Islamic, let's say, something to help the cause of humanity for the sake of God, or to help Muslims, or whatever, whatever it may be. I mean, everyone has their own kind of set of circumstances and different ways, but the main thing is that, okay, I should be striving to serve God, and then if I can, I should also have a sense of duty to the community at large. And sometimes we can do that through our career. As a Muslim community as a whole, we also have to look and see, where do we have people and where do we not have people. Maybe in some cases, let's say that everyone in my community has gone into computer science, but nobody's gone into, let's say, some other area, let's say education or curriculum development, or let's say into animation, or into let's say journalism, or legal matters, to be able to help the Muslims with their affairs. Then it becomes my responsibility to focus on these other areas.
Thank you for that. So Sheikh, there's a lot of discussion about artificial intelligence, especially in the world of surveillance and security. Is there anything from an Islamic ethics point of view on the use of AI or machine learning? So I'm sort of thinking about Amazon Alexas, self-driving cars.
This is it's a new area, and I'm not an expert to be able to give you a full perspective on this. It's a very interesting and intriguing area, and I'm sure there are people who are researching this from an Islamic perspective. What I can say about it, just some thoughts that come to mind. One of them is, that just because this thing is going to help me, it doesn't mean that I can just lower my guard and assume that everything about it is okay. Let's say, it is, recording what's going on in my home and sending it to people, and I know that they're going to be reviewing it, right? Well, then I have to think about privacy concerns, security concerns. Let's say that it's taking pictures of me, and those pictures are, of me at home. Well, obviously, I need to be aware of where those pictures are going, who can access them, right? These are things which are important. Let's say that, I don't know, it can be hacked by others, and they can, sort of eavesdrop, or let's say spy on me. Then these are things which are important. I mean, when you have even, you see people who are tech experts, sometimes you see them covering their laptop camera when they're not using it. There's a reason behind it. It's because it's very easy to hack a computer and then to turn on the webcam without the light showing. So, I should assume that if I have my laptop open, that they can see me, probably. I'm just saying, I could probably assume that. I mean, unless I'm not saying, okay, on a fiqhi level that I have to, because on this case I have to cover up or something. I just want to give that as an example. Let's say that when it comes to some of these devices, they're known for being hackable and hacked. So I should be aware of that. I think that when it comes to the self-driving cars and some of the other things, like again, like the feeling that you get the more you use these things is that you're signing away a lot of your life to them in order, and there's a hope that somehow they're going to help you a lot in return. Like even when it comes to, like, let's say using Android Auto for the car, like I just realized recently that you have to basically set your privacy settings in a way where they now like, it seems that maybe there's a way of configuring, but like they can now have access to your calendar, so they know where you're going to go. They have access to some of your personal details. They know where you go. They can keep track of where you're going back and forth. Now, just as a believer, we have to ask ourselves, well, what am I compromising? Am I giving away some of my izzah and my privacy and these things in order for getting like just a little bit of benefit, maybe, which isn't such a big deal? I guess the main point is that technology is a tool. We should understand, okay, we want to accomplish something. It's valuable. Okay, I'm using it for this purpose, but I'm aware of what's happening here. I shouldn't let technology use me as a tool for somebody else in order for them to exploit me. And so I think with AI, there's some exciting opportunities, but there's some dangerous areas as well. One last thing I'll mention is that when it comes to VR, virtual reality, that's something which concerns me, because as it is, like we tend to be so detached from reality and from God when we're glued to our screens. Now it's like even taking that further and making us like kind of even more devoid from like absent from like the real world. And I have concerns about where that would take us. So I would exercise a lot of caution when it comes to VR.
Wow, you have given us so much food for thought. Thank you so much, Sheikh Salim Yusufali. But unfortunately, we've come to the end of today's episode. But we'd like to thank you so much for making time to discuss this really important topic with us today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure, and I wanted to thank you for the deep questions. And I hope that, inshallah, all of us are able to at least be reminded about the important duty that we have of parenting. And may Allah Ta'ala grant us the tawfiq and opportunity to like do our responsibility, and may He grant us children who are righteous servants of His. May Allah reward you all for your efforts with this podcast.
Thank you so much, Ilahi Ameen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we also want to thank you all for tuning in. Feel free to leave us a comment on our social media handles, and to find out more, please visit our website, thegoodtree.faith.
So till next week, fi amanillah.
Join us next week as we discuss our relationship with the environment with Sayyid Hassan Ali Rizvi.